What's up, geeks? This is Fit Geek Training, where we talk about your fitness and all the things that you geek out about. Today we are going to talk about the highest grossing superhero movie of all time, The Avengers. I am stoked about this one. Stick around. What's up, geeks? I'm John Sargent, and this is Fit Geek Training. We are reviewing all of the Marvel Cinematic Universe movies, and we are coming to the close of Phase 1 today. We've done Iron Man and Thor and Hulk and Iron Man 2 and Captain America, and now we're going to do the Avengers. If you haven't been following along, I also do a workout for each one of these movies, so if you get a chance, go check those out also. But today, we're talking about an awesome superhero movie, one of the best there ever has been. I'm going to rank it a little bit later on. I'm stoked. Let's get into it. Let's talk about the cast. Alright, the cast of this movie is huge. I'm sure I'm going to leave some people out. We've already profiled a lot of the people from their other movies, so I'm going to move through this one a little bit quicker. We've got Chris Evans. He's playing Captain America. I love Chris Evans. I think he's one of the best castings in all of Marvel. He does a great job as Captain America again. Side note, the Captain America suit in this movie is terrible. You've got Robert Downey Jr. He's coming back as Iron Man. It goes without saying, he is great. He knocks it out of the park every single time. Chris Hemsworth comes back as Thor. Much better look for Thor than in the first Thor movie. And his storyline in this one is a little bit minimal compared to the others, but always fun to see him do anything. Mark Ruffalo joins the cast. He's replacing Ed Norton as Bruce Banner, and he also plays the Hulk also. He did the motion capture for it. Gonna tell you, I love Mark Ruffalo as Bruce Banner. I like Ed Norton, but I love Mark Ruffalo. He just comes across as a much more tortured man by carrying around the weight of this destructive creature that lives inside of him. And I love to watch that performance. We've got Scarlett Johansson. She comes back as Natasha Romanoff as the Black Widow. Good news, she did answer one of my letters, and I am allowed to be 51 yards or more away from her now.
I don't see how that's a party.
We got Jeremy Renner. He is Hawkeye, Clint, I really hope they find something for him to do on one of the Netflix shows. I want him to get his own 8 or 13 episode, a little more violent, a little more grown up Netflix series, kind of in the same vein as Daredevil and the Punisher. I think Jeremy Renner is awesome, and he really plays like gritty and violent really well, so I would be so stoked if something like that happened. Loki comes back in this one. Obviously, Tom Hiddleston plays Loki. He's our main villain. And this is one of the few times that Marvel has a very, very strong villain. I love Loki. Tom Hiddleston is great. He is easily my favorite Marvel villain to date. Samuel L. Jackson has a much bigger role in this one than he has previously. The role of Nick Fury was designed for Samuel L. Jackson, so obviously he does a good job at it, at least this version of Nick Fury. And then we got my man, Agent Phil Coulson. Love Phil Coulson. So glad that he gets a big part in this one. Spoiler alerts, he does die in this one. It's very sad, except for that there's a TV show based on him and the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., so I'm pretty sure he doesn't stay dead. Alright, the Avengers plot. This had so much potential to go wrong. Imagine how daunting a task it was for Joss Whedon, the director, and the writers of this movie to take each and every one of these pre-existing characters, these stars, these egos, give them equal time, make no one look weak, and make everyone look strong, and still make it a coherent story that is compelling, and they nailed it. It's an absolute masterpiece as far as I'm concerned. First, we meet Loki. He's in like another dimension, and he is being told by the leader of the Chitauri that if he gets the Tesseract and brings it to them, that he'll get his own army and that he can rule Earth. And Loki, being Loki, is like, yeah, that sounds awesome. I would love to rule Midgard. Meanwhile, on Earth, in a SHIELD research facility, Fury and Agent Hill and Coulson and Hawkeye are trying to get out of there because the Tesseract is not behaving itself. Eric Spellwig comes back from Thor. He's the one researching it, and he's like, this thing is not going well. While they're evacuating, it opens up a portal, and Loki shows up. He kicks a little ass, and he's got a spear that glows, and it's a Loki pokey stick, and he mind controls Hawkeye, and he mind controls Spellwig, and they start helping him, and then he takes the Tesseract, and he bails out of there. Gunfight ensues, and Nick Fury has to get on the phone, and he's like, Loki took the cube. This means war. Put the Avengers back together ASAP. Then we see Black Widow.
Look into my eyes.
We need you to come in.
Let me put you on hold. Where do you want me?
Sorry. She's in the middle of a mission. She's tied to a chair, but she's interrogating the people who are torturing her. And Coulson calls, and Coulson's a complete and utter badass, and he's like, I got a jet pointed at you, and I'm going to smoke you if you don't give her the phone. So he pulls her out of that mission, and he tells her, you got to go talk to the big guy. And she thinks he's talking about Stark, and he's like, no, the big guy. So she's got to go to Calcutta. She has to go get Banner. Meanwhile, Coulson goes to the brand new Stark Tower, and he goes and gets Tony, and he's like, hey, the thing got stolen, we need some help. While they're doing that, Fury goes and talks to recently unfrozen Capsicle, Steve Rogers, and he tells him, I got a mission for you. You got to save the world. And obviously, Cap being Cap, answers the call, and he's like, let's do this. Meanwhile, in Germany, Hawkeye goes and he needs to steal a piece of a thing that's going to stabilize the Tesseract. While he's doing that, Loki causes a distraction by scanning a guy's eyeball, and the crowd disperses, and he goes after them, and he kind of divides himself into astro projections of himself, and he makes them kneel. Really villainous stuff. And Captain America shows up in... I hate his costume in this movie. I really do. So Cap is fighting Loki, and he's not faring all that well because he may be a superhuman, but he's still just a human, and Loki is a god. And then Iron Man shows up in the armor, AC/DC blasting, and he points a bunch of guns at Loki, and Loki submits. Then they're in the Quinjet, and Thor shows up, and he takes Loki, and he goes and tries to convince him, hey, like, knock this plan off. You're not any better than them. I thought you were dead. Real Shakespearean stuff where they kind of speak in the thou and thys. Tony comes in, and him and Thor fight for a little while. It's a pretty cool fight. You know, uses the lightning, and it actually powers Tony's suit. And then Cap shows up, and he breaks it up. So it's like a bunch of brothers fighting until Big Bro gets there, the voice of reason. So they take Loki and everyone else, and they meet up on top of the SHIELD helicarrier. You guys, I love SHIELD. When I was a kid, I was super into G.I. Joe. And G.I. Joe had a ton of different soldiers with a bunch of different characters, and the coolest thing about it was the vehicles. And the vehicles with the logo emblazoned on it, and that's what SHIELD is. They've got helicarriers, and they've got cars, and they've got Quinjets. Their logos on everything. Everything looks cool. They are probably my favorite fictional military force. Once they get onto the helicarrier, Banner and Stark are trying to figure out where the Tesseract is, and they realize SHIELD's kind of up to something, they're not sure what. Meanwhile, Scarlett Johansson
Don't tell me.
goes and she interrogates Loki. This scene is... the acting is so good if you're really paying attention. When she went and got Banner and he yells at her, the fear in her eyes comes across as so real. She is genuinely afraid of Banner that he might turn into the Hulk because she's read up. She knows her stuff. When she's talking to Loki and he's trying to frighten her and she's acting scared because she wants information out of him, you can genuinely see the difference between fake scared versus when she was real scared. So she finds out that he's there because he wants to unleash the Hulk. So she goes to tell everybody else. It leads to a big argument. They're upset that SHIELD is building weapons. They don't really like the way that each other is doing things. Cap thinks that Iron Man's kind of an a-hole, and Iron Man thinks that Cap is overrated, and Thor can't believe these people are so tiny. While they're arguing, Hawkeye shows up and he blows up one of the engines of the helicarrier. Fight ensues with some of the other Loki Pokey sticked former S.H.I.E.L.D. guys. Iron Man and Cap have to save one of the engines so it doesn't go down. And in the fracas, Banner transforms into the Hulk. And he's chasing after Black Widow until Thor intervenes. Him and Thor fight, and that's one of the greatest battles of superhero versus superhero that's been in any of these movies because they're the strongest ones. So that's always a ton of fun to watch. That pays off later on in Thor Ragnarok. Black Widow and Hawkeye fight. She hits him in the head real hard and she knocks the Loki Pokey spell off of him so that he can get his marbles back, and now he's back on their side. And Thor goes after Loki. So he goes to the cell, Loki does his disappearing act, and Thor jumps into the cell while Loki comes out. And then here comes my boy Coulson, and he's got a gun based on the Destroyer. He doesn't even know what it does, but he aims to use it. But he hasn't dealt with gods before, and Loki disappears from in front of him, and he's behind him, and he shanks him right through the middle of his chest. And unfortunately, we lose Coulson. Maybe, sort of. So they figure out, oh man, Loki wants to defeat us in front of the whole world. He must be at Stark Tower. So then they take off, and Tony goes to Stark Tower. There's a really cool speech where he's telling him, Earth's mightiest heroes, that sort of thing. And Loki tosses him off the building, and the suit comes and attaches to him, and he comes back. And by this time, Loki has opened up the portal to the Chitauri, and they're coming through. There's an army. I'm not going to go into it in great detail because we've all seen it. There's a huge fight. Every single second of it is incredible, and the Avengers win. While they're fighting, the World Security Council, Nick Fury's bosses, fire a nuke at New York because they think that's how you're going to stop it. Meanwhile, they figured out how to close the portal, and Iron Man's like, not yet. And he takes the nuke and he brings it up into the portal and he lets it go there. It detonates, and then all the Chitauri who are on the ground, they all die. It's kind of like a hive mind sort of deal. And then he falls through and he lands, and Hulk yells at him, wakes him up. They want to go get shawarma. And they capture Loki, and then Thor takes Loki and the Tesseract back to Asgard. Now we know the Avengers can be a thing. They can come together when necessary, but they all go their separate ways. Then we get our mid-credit scene, and we see Thanos for the first time. When this movie came out, other than people like me who know who Thanos is and read comic books, everyone else was going, who's this purple chin Jay Leno looking guy? So it was this mystery that hung over for a lot of people for a really long time. Now, we got Avengers Infinity War coming up. That's the whole reason we're doing all these reviews. And Thanos is finally, after 11, 12 years, is going to be our main villain. And I am so pumped for that movie. Alright, my ranking. Every week I'm ranking these movies. There's currently 17 that exist until Black Panther comes out in a few weeks. So I've gone 1 through 17. You probably already figured it out based on my enthusiasm. Avengers is numero uno. It is the best still. I watched it last night and I still find it to be the most enjoyable of all of the Marvel movies, and I like them all. I can't get enough of this. Let me give you a little bit of perspective. When I was a kid, we had to watch Lou Ferrigno's Hulk and the bad Spider-Man 70s show, and for superhero stuff, you had to hope Batman would be on Scooby-Doo. It was rough times. It wasn't the golden age of geekdom that we live in now. To think that they would put all of these characters in one movie together, and that it would be a good movie, and that the action would be great, and that the acting would be great, and it's well written, is still beyond my comprehension, because I just can't get used to it. So whenever I watch this movie, it reminds me of when I saw it in the theater, and I told people this must have been what it was like to see Star Wars originally in the theater. It just makes me feel like a little kid, and I am all for that. The rundown. Every week I'm going to give you sort of a bold thought, a thesis statement, if you will. For this movie, the best part about this movie, mind you, I love everything about this movie, literally every second of it, but the best part about this movie is not the action, it's the acting. Like I mentioned earlier, Scarlett Johansson, her for real scared versus her pretend scared. Coulson, when he calls the guy on the phone and he's like, we got a jet pointed at you, or when he walks up to Loki and he's like, I don't even know what this gun does. He's a complete and utter badass with ice in his veins. Yet, when he's talking to Captain America, he's stumbling over his words and he's super, like, he's talking to a pretty girl. You've got the arguments between Cap and Tony where you really feel like Cap finds him to be half of what his father was, and you really find that Tony thinks that Cap is completely overrated and that his father talked about him too much and that he's not that special. The acting is paramount in this movie and the action is secondary. Both are exceptional though. This week, Hawkeye, Volume 1. This is a really good read. It's written by Matt Fraction. It's sort of almost like crime noir, but it's set in current day, and it's about what Hawkeye is doing when he's not with the Avengers. And he's sort of not really got his stuff together, and it's really entertaining to see. It's, you know, he's more small time. He's just a dude, and this is a really, really fun read. The other thing is the Ultimates. That's what a lot of these characters, Nick Fury, some of Captain America, they kind of mishmash the Ultimates, which is like a side universe from the main Marvel universe in the comics. And they took a lot from that and they added it together, and that's how you get this movie. It's a really, really fun read. Alright, geeks, that does it for this week. Obviously, I love the Avengers. It is my #1 favorite Marvel movie. That doesn't mean that next week when we do Iron Man 3 that I'm not going to love that too, because I love all of these movies. So I'm really looking forward to that one. Also, keep your eyes peeled. I'm going to put out buddy workouts for the Avengers. We're going to assemble with a friend, and I'm going to give you 15 exercises that you can do with a friend. That video is also released at the same time as this one, so check that out. Next week, we're going to do Iron Man 3. We'll have a review and a workout then. Until then, you can always go check out the Instagram at FitGeekTraining. If you're ready to get in shape, I'm ready to help you get there. Go to the website, fitgeektraining.com, and I will see you guys next week. Game over.